Hello and welcome to a brand new series of the Retro Replay. Now, in the early 90s, the main competition at the time in the 16-bit era was the Sega Mega Drive / Genesis and the Super Nintendo. They were the main game consoles to buy at the time, but obviously other companies tried to take over, and one company, Panasonic, came up with their own console, and that is the Panasonic 3DO. Similar capabilities to that of the PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn, which released a couple of years later. Now, it's just an interesting system because at the time it was pretty expensive, and unless you had a lot of money you couldn't really afford it, but this was described as the real game console, as it says there, real. But what's so great about it, and what did it have to offer that other consoles didn't? Well, let's take a closer look. So here is the Panasonic 3DO. It's the FZ1 model, the first model, and there were two other models, but this one tends to be the less faulty, so this is the main system we're going to be reviewing today. On the front we've got a disc tray which pops out every time we want to put a new game in. On the side here we have the power button that goes on and off. We have the open close to get the discs out. And here's a control port. Just one controller port. I'll explain that in a minute when I show the controllers. At the top there's nothing, just the logo and name. Nothing too exciting there. On the side, expansion ports. I believe it's to play certain CD videos that were released at the time. On the back we have RF port. Don't know why you want to use that these days. We've got another extension port right there. And this is an S video out and your typical AV cables. And this is one problem with the system, well, this one model especially. The blooming, this thing is hardwired into it, so you can't replace it. So if this breaks, then you're pretty much screwed there, unless you can actually take it apart and then replace it that way. But honestly, this is just awkward. Why couldn't it just be one you can just replace easily if you lose it? But never mind. On the other side, just fan to keep it nice and cool, and on the bottom, just all that good information you need to know about electricity and lasers. So let's take a quick look at the controller. So here is your typical Panasonic controller for the 3DO. It's quite similar to a Super Nintendo controller. You got your D-pad there. You got what I would assume is the select button, which has got the stop sign on. And this is your start button with the play and pause on it. And then you got A, B, C, similar to the Mega Drive Genesis controller. On the top you've got your L trigger and your right trigger. On the bottom you have headphone jacks in, so you can actually just plug your headphones in and just listen to the game, I believe. And very interesting. And there's a volume control, so you can increase or decrease the volume of the game if you're using headphones. And the top, this is the most unusual thing, because as I've said, the console only has one controller input, so in order to get around the fact that you need, for certain games you might want to play two-player, they included this, another controller port. So what you had to do was get the controller port from another controller and plug it in. Basically, it's hard to do it with one hand, but you get the idea that you have to plug it in. It's like daisy chaining them together rather than plugging several controllers into one console. Just plug one controller in and just plug as many controllers as you want. So I'm not sure why they did that, but it's very confusing. Another controller that I have is the Capcom controller. This is an official controller. It's got the 3DO sign on, but down here you could probably just about tell it's got Capcom. I'm not too sure how this was released. I think it might have been a prize draw or something. Anyone could tell me, please let me know. But it's similar sort of style. It's got the D-pad there, you start select A, B, C, and yeah, the L and R triggers are there, plus a P button that does something or other, I'm not sure. But this is a reasonably rare control. I'm not sure how rare, but it is very interesting. It's one you have to use two hands. It's got a strange feel to it, but overall these controllers are pretty good, and There are different accessories such as a flight stick, so for certain flight games you can use that. So there are definitely a variety of controllers available for the system. Games I currently have for the system, for the most part they're just in CD cases like this, or in small dual cases like this. But one of the most interesting things about them is the big box games such as this. I mean, it's a big cardboard box, it's bigger than most boxes actually. It's almost as big as the old PC game boxes, and they've got the dual case inside with the manual and the game. So that's interesting. They're hard to come by, the cardboard boxes, because obviously not many people like cardboard boxes, so they often throw them away and just take the old CD, and there you go. But yeah, that's pretty interesting actually. So, but a lot of collectors would prefer to get the cardboard boxes when they can, but they're easy enough to collect for as just the standard CD case. So that's enough about the games and everything else, so let's check out some gameplay.
The first game on the list is Hell, a cyberpunk thriller. This is more or less a horror-themed point-and-click adventure game. As you can see, you can select from 2 characters, though whether they play any differently or different outcomes for the story, I have no idea. I haven't really got far enough to find out. And as the game begins, you see the graphics look pretty good for the time, but trying to figure out how to control this. I mean, the controls aren't bad, they're responsive, but I'm trying to figure out where I'm supposed to go. I'm guessing I've got to go talk to this guy first. If I can click the right button to get over there. Come on, is it? No, is it that one? Come on. Oh, there we go. And this is where the cheesiness factor comes in, because the animation, as you can see, isn't, well, in today's standards, that great. And the voice acting doesn't do much justice for it either, especially with the looping animations.
So what's the flowchart? Let's start with what
and the plot doesn't make any sense either.
Tries to nuke us in the middle of the night, only we got lucky and stuffed them.
Or any logical sense anyway. I haven't really got into the story, but
damn it, we're ARC employees. We enforce the laws. We
yep, classic voice acting right there.
Step over the line sometime.
Maybe they nailed you for being soft on rogue techs like me. Any other ARC agents would have pulled my plug by now.
For some reason, just can't seem to get into this game actually. Do try a look looping animation, but yeah, again.
You were a singer with data on other hackers.
Skip that and try and navigate, but to be honest, I don't know how you actually control. I mean, true, I could look at the manual to look it up, but these games should be able to just like dive in rather than to look up instructions for it. But I don't know, maybe I'm just being too harsh to the game, but that's my general impression. It's not that great. Next on the list is D, probably the scariest horror game I'm playing other than FIFA. Sorry. The story is pretty interesting and it takes you on quite an adventure. This is more of an interactive movie than an actual game, but this is a pretty unique title and one that, if you're into horrors, you probably will enjoy. A well-respected doctor of Los Angeles suddenly goes mad and starts killing patients and staff alike and takes many people hostage in the hospital. And you play as protagonist Laura, the daughter of said doctor, and try and discover what drove your father to madness and see why he suddenly decided to turn a mass murderer. Upon hearing the news, Laura decides to leave San Francisco and go to Los Angeles to the hospital where it all began to try and uncover the mystery that drove her father into madness. So that's the general story of the game. Basic enough to get you interested in the game, and as you can see here, some clips to show you what the game is all about. Basically, the game takes place outside of reality, so anything can happen. Pretty spooky. I haven't even pressed start yet. Now, one thing you need to bear in mind when playing D is that you need to set some time aside, because there is unfortunately no pause feature in the game at all. So basically, once you start the game, you have to play it all the way through or just quit and start again. So some people might see it as a downer, but the game is relatively short, so it's creating that movie experience as if you were going to see it in the cinema when you pause it at the cinema. Now, as you can see, as soon as you enter the hospital, the whole scenery changes, so you're unlocking this sort of castle mansion thing, and this is where the game begins. You can control Laura by moving her forward or left or right, and you can interact with certain objects or sceneries within the game. She's also able to pick up certain objects or items which you can use later on in the game. But there are some pretty spooky things that go on here. Just like that. No rhyme and reason for it, but there you go. Your main objective is to travel around the castle/mansion, discover all sorts of clues, solve puzzles, and collect certain items to discover why your father turned into mass murder and killed all those people. Now, obviously I'm not going to spoil too much in the game because it'd be a lot to spoil here, and I haven't got that far myself, but if this still is a game for you, then definitely check it out. One more thing to say, the music's great and the atmosphere is very creepy, so definitely one I would recommend if you're at all into your horror games such as Silent Hill or even Resident Evil. Now, what kind of review would this be if I didn't talk about Doom, which was released on pretty much every platform in the 90s? And this is a really good version to go with if you happen to have the 3DO. Not only does it have great graphics to go along with the gameplay, but it's also got fantastic music as it's on a CD, and obviously you get the best effects on the CD, so if you just have a listen. Amazing music, and obviously you get to kill lots of these demon controlled things. So yeah, there's not much to complain about here. It's a great version of Doom. The only thing I would have to complain about is the control slightly, because as I'm moving using the D-pad, it's sort of awkward. It feels like I'm slipping around almost as I'm trying to go along here, but I'm just falling all over the place and falling into this acid stuff, whatever you call it. That's one minor complaint, but other than that, there's no real problems with the game. It's just your typical, well, not typical, but fantastic game of Doom, and definitely one worth checking out on 3DO. Now here's one many of you would be familiar with, one of the greatest, or arguably one of the greatest full motion video games that exists, Wing Commander 3: Heart of a Tiger. Now there's no denying there's high production value that's gone into this game, which we'll talk about now. Obviously the graphics are pretty impressive for its time. Now the highlight of this game is obviously the full motion video sections. The main enemies in this game are the Kilrathi, a cat-like species that plan to take over the galaxy. A typical storyline there. But obviously what makes this full motion video section so great is the actors, like Mark Hamill here, famous for Star Wars, and you have John Rhys Davies, famous for Lord of the Rings. And who could forget Malcolm McDowell? There are various other actors, but if you just listen to a scene like this, you can just see how much effort the actors are putting into the performance.
Very long history, sir. Ship assignments aren't open to debate, Colonel. Of course, I realize that the accommodations may not be what you're quite used to.
Oh, sir, I didn't mean to suggest that.
The victory will benefit greatly from having a wing commander of your stature and experience.
So as you can see, there was high production value in this game, especially in the full motion video sections. There are obviously gameplay elements to the game, but we'll talk about those in a moment. The effects used for the time are top notch in this game, and the actors give a great performance overall, so there's nothing to really criticise there unless you're a real hardened up critic. But for its time, it's a very impressive game. Speaking of which, it's actually a game, isn't it? You can navigate around the place or talk to certain characters in the game, and you get full motion video cutscenes. So it gives the feeling generally of a sandbox game where you can just go around and explore and interact with different characters in the game. Now the actual gameplay is the flight part where you get to fly in space in your Wing Commander ship and shoot down enemy Kilrathi or asteroids. Here I'm doing the simulator to give you an idea what the game's all about. There is an option to use a fight stick controller which is available for the 3DO, though I don't currently have that at the moment, but I'm hoping to get one in the future to play this bad boy. But overall, what I've played so far, it's a brilliant game and definitely one I'd recommend. Now, unless you're a football fan, I wouldn't highly recommend this, but it's interesting for its time. It's like a sort of early PC FIFA game made by EA. And as some people who know me would probably know that I'm not that big into football games, but what it is, it's alright I guess, but you've got several different modes. You can choose different teams from different places, you can select several players I think, you can have a pretty good match I suppose, but honestly there's not much to mention. It's just a typical football game but on the 3DO. Well, obviously I'm not very good at this sort of thing, and as you're about to see, I don't do that well, because I start kicking towards my end and see I'll kick the ball out. I'm not too impressed with this game, but not one I would recommend highly, but if you like football games and you can find one cheap enough for the 3DO, you might want to check it out. But for me personally, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone who's not a fan of football games, but what it is, it's decent enough. Now this is a game I wanted to talk about in this review, but unfortunately due to problems with the actual game, as you can see it's a little bit glitchy here. Not sure exactly what's wrong with it. I have tried to boot it up. I have played it before. The racing mechanic seems to work well. It doesn't work too well with a D-pad. But I'm not sure if there's a problem with the disc or whatever, and you obviously get these full motion video cutscenes with this weird guy, but as you can see it's crashed, so I can't play anymore. I was hoping to talk a fair bit about this game, but unfortunately I can't seem to get it to work at the minute, so unfortunately I won't be able to talk about this in review, but sorry about that. The last game I'm going to talk about in this review is Total Eclipse, and from the opening cutscene you can see you get attacked by those weird vehicle things from Tron, and they attack a space station. I'm not sure why. It's some alien race that's selected the human race for their hunting or something like that. This is quite similar to Hell, with its 3D animated characters and sprites for the full motion video sections. And to take out the space station, and then you get to talk to Mr. Spaghetti Face here.
I'm going to take over your planet, or something like that, because we're bored and have nothing else better to do with our time. Sorry about that.
And then you use this sort of ray gun thing which shoots the sun, which makes it explode or something. I don't know, I haven't read the manual properly. So basically you have to try and reverse the effects of what they've done to the sun. And that is where the game begins, pretty much, with drunk Spaghetti Face. The gameplay is quite similar to games such as Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, and dare I say it, Cybermorph on the Atari Jaguar. It's a 3D shooter. You can go up, down, left or right, and you can even turn or tilt. And it seems to control alright. I'm not sure if it's me, but there is the option to actually change the controls or the control layout on the controller if you're not used to the way it handles, but I seem to die pretty quickly, so I'm not sure if it's something to do with the difficulty, and there we go, crashed and died. If you die you start back at the very beginning of the level. I'm not sure if there are any checkpoints, I haven't got far enough to find out, and you can also get power-ups which are pretty helpful, pretty cool. There's not much to say about this game really. It's a decent shooter and fairly cheap to pick up, so one I'd recommend if you like this sort of thing and see if you like it. One other thing I have to say, the music's pretty cool, so if you like this sort of music, as you can hear in the background, then this might be one to pick up and have a playthrough or listen to. So yep, I wouldn't say it's the worst 3D shoot 'em up I've played. I've played better, but for what it is, it's decent enough, so worth picking up if you're into this sort of thing. Also, I know that the alien is not called Mr. Spaghetti Face, but that's my name for him. I like that name, so I'm stick with that. Mr. Spaghetti Face. Not a cool name, but there you go. But cool power up there though.
So overall, is the 3DO worth getting? Well, if you're a fan of PlayStation 1 / Sega Saturn era type games on a CD, then you should find some pretty decent titles. Amazing variety. There's hundreds of titles to collect for. Some great titles, some mediocre, but there are some genuinely good titles here. And so if you are thinking of getting one, these may cost around £50 upwards for a loose one, but a box could be 100 or more. But it's definitely worth checking out. There are different models. This is the first version, the FZ1. The original one made by Panasonic, but yeah, it's definitely one worth checking out if you're at all interested in the 3DO, as it's usually got a few faults with it. So yeah, definitely a system I would personally recommend, but of course other systems are available, so check it out and see what you think. So thank you very much for watching. I'm XiXMayheMXiX, playing the good, the bad and the retro. Ah, just in time. Just the person I wanted to see.
So, this is where you wanted me. What do you want? Why did you call me here? I'm actually kind of surprised outside your room for once.
Well, you see, Dr. Mad, the reason I called you here is because, well, you obviously know, or you probably have gathered, that there's a sort of an evil version of myself after me. Well, with in the mirrors and that, so I probably will end up getting this, but I think I'll need you.
You want an alliance with me? Your evil counterpart that wants to kill you? That doesn't even make any sense! Even to me! Why should I join with you?
Look, I know we haven't had the best hero and villain relationship, but hear me out. If you help me track down whatever this evil half of me is, then I will give you a laboratory. Maybe this place will be a suitable laboratory. But be warned, any double crossing and that is it. I will send you to a dimension where there is no twilight.
Oh, no, not that. Okay. We might be able to work something out. Don't worry. Look, we work together. If you give me a nice laboratory, this place will need cleaning up, of course, it's a right dump. But we could work something out here, I reckon. Together, we could rule the universe, or at least work together at a time being, and then we can be enemies again. Oh, I like it already. Count me in.
So we have a deal then? Good, okay. Let's get to work.
Yes, let's begin. Now first, we need a plan.